Today we're going to put side by sides two small direct drives, the Fanatec DD Pro, which is basically the PlayStation compatible CSL DD, and the Moza R9. But first, let's start with the conclusion. In between both, I prefer the Fanatec CSL lineup because it suits me better. But you know what? There are situations, if you take the Fanatec CSL, you're going to do yourself a disservice. Disclaimer time, both wheels were sent by the respective companies and I have affiliate with them both. And as always, all opinions are my own. There is no interference from the companies. The CSL DD, when it was announced, created many waves as the first real mass market, small form factor direct drive. It has somewhat paved the way for this format, and here is exactly where the Moza comes with the R9. This video will touch on both of them as a means of comparison. There will be more detail on each of their respective reviews that will be on the cards above. If you put these side by side, you can kind of see where the inspiration comes from, and it's not just on the wheelbases, it's also on the wheels and also on the pedals. However, for the sake of this video, we're gonna center ourselves more on the wheelbases and a little bit on the wheels. Let's talk about prices. The CSL DD and DD Pro come at a variety of prices, from $349.99 for the 5Nm version of the CSL DD, $500 if you add the boost pack for 8Nm, and then $894 for a complete 8Nm bundle with the DD Pro. Between the CSL DD and DD Pro, the only real difference is the PlayStation compatibility. As for the rest, it is exactly the same. Moza as far more simple with the R9, $449, 90mm, buy anything you want separately. Then there's the wheels where it makes everything a little more expensive. Moza as Street, the CS for $250, the GS for $499, and the RS for $549. Fanatec has everything under the sun and the sun itself, so there will always be something to suit you, and if you sub to the channel, that also happens. Ecosystem-wise, basically Fanatec is far more complete. Moza is basically focusing on a few guns, trying to improve where Fanatec is lacking, and then undercutting in price in terms of those specific products. Moza has another card up their sleeves. In this case, it will be the places where they're selling their equipment, and in this case, they sell more on Oceania and Asia. Fanatec on those regions, if it has stock, it will be at inflated prices and it will be by third parties. And then Moza has a last card up its sleeve, which will be the stock, which is far more plentiful than Fanatec's. Format-wise, the wheelbases are similar, but they have many differences. Both of them are cubes, and the Fanatec CSL DD and DD Pro, it can be mounted either through the sides with these rails or on the bottoms with these rails. Basically, you use T-slot nuts to get this wheel mounted. On the front, you have the screw holes for accessories, as well as the power button, and this also serves as the mode button. If you start pressing it when it's turned on, you can change it from PlayStation to Xbox to PC mode. On the back, all the connections, you can make this a standalone unit connecting everything to the wheelbase, and then only one USB comes out, in this case a USB-C, and then the 4-pin port. The Moza, despite the size, weighs pretty much the same thing as the CSL DD, and it's far simpler in terms of design. If you want to mount them, it will be on these 4M6 bolts provided in the box, and there are also other ways to mount this through accessories. And on the back, you have the power and all the connections. On the top, you have these two small holes that will be for connecting the dashboard. The Moza is far smaller than the CSL DD and DD Pro, and this will give you an advantage in certain rigs where you can actually lower the screen, or gives you other opportunities to put the wheel base in. Fanatec has a huge ecosystem, and one of the most popular wheels is one of this type, so it will be the Club Sport V2.5. There are other options now, including the Formula 1 Esports version 2, that you can update the shifters, but this one over here is one of the highest levels they have for this model, and it comes with this wonderful shifter system. And I believe, and in my opinion, I might be a little bit biased for you, that the shifters, the magnetic shifters from Fanatec, they are the best out there, and the ones that are on the Bentley wheel and also on the BMW wheel, which is very rare out there, they are even better than this. Now, this wheel comes also with LEDs that you can configure on the Fanalabs software. However, the buttons could be better. I do like these buttons over here, these round buttons, but the rotaries, well, they could be a little bit better. You do have also these nub switches at the middle that will give you 2 extra buttons. You have the funky switches, you have lots and lots of buttons, but for me, the Achilles wheel of this wheel itself will be the button caps, the rotaries, which are a bit on the light side, though I like them, and also the caps for these switches. It has an incredible touch. However, these break quite easily. This is a very comfortable wheel, but because it's 28 centimeters, it is quite small for me, and that's why I've been using instead the McLaren GT3. It's far cheaper than the Club Sport V2. However, for me, it fits me a little bit better. I like these rotary switches over here much more than up switches. They are basically the same. I love these two buttons. They're very hard to press. The shifters are okay. They are not as good as this one, nor as good as the GS wheel, but they work quite well. And you have a lot of options. And this wheel starts at $199, so it's pretty good. It is cheaper than most wheels out there for this type of wheel, which is fantastic. It gives you options, but if you install it with the metal QR, which it is not needed, but it's something that I would recommend, it will increase the price by €100. The GS wheel, for me, it is one wheel that is well worth the price. It basically picks up all the faults of the Club Sport wheel and basically improves on it. All the buttons are retro illuminated. The shifters, they are okay. They are not as good as the Fanatec ones, but they are pretty nice. The clutch buttons over here at the back, they could be better, but they work well. Apparently, there might be some issues on Bluetooth, but generally they have been working for me. The buttons have a really good touch. However, I kind of feel that it could be more of a short throw one instead of this long throw one. That is more useful for me in rounder wheels with hubs. The rotaries, they are very hard to engage. It might be good for you, might not be good for me. I would prefer it a little bit softer, not as soft as the Club Sports, but these rotaries, man, at the middle, they're so good. And this wheel feels sturdy. It is super comfortable. And you also have this rev light over here that works quite well, and you can configure it on the software. You can change the colors of the backlights as well. This for me is an excellent wheel, and it's very well worth the price because it has this QR that basically beats to death on Fanatec. Not everything is Formula wheels, and in this case, Moza and Fanatec have solutions. In the case of Fanatec, for this specific price point, which is very similar to the Moza, they have the CSL hub, and for the case of Moza, they have the CS hub. In my opinion, the Moza one is much better, even though the wheels from Fanatec tend to be sturdier. It's just that this product has so many flaws, even though I prefer the ergonomics of the CSL hub. It just bends very easily, and the buttons could be far better. The Moza CS basically sees all the faults of this hub, of the CSL hub, and it just basically improves on it. This is a much better product overall. Now it's time for the part where it matters the most for me. That will be the driving. Both are good, but for me, the CSL family has the edge where it matters. The DD Pro is exactly the same wheel as the CSL, so it will be super similar to the D1 if you configure it in the same way, except of course in the amount of torque. The detail is phenomenal in all the sims that I've tried and race on. There's lots of details, the base is quick and has snappy reaction, the performance is very consistent through the sim, iRacing is great with the RFFP, Assetto Corsa is absolutely brilliant, and on Assetto Corsa Competizione you have a really good time. The only title that I really didn't like with the DD Pro was Gran Turismo 7, but it has been a few months since I've tried it, and to be fair, every wheel had issues at the time. On the PC platform, everything has been decent. Now, the R9 is just a little bit different. I can't say it was bad in any sim, but in comparison, in my opinion, it only really excelled in one, and that was iRacing with the RFFP, which I think is absolutely top level. The rest of the titles had variable levels of performance. Assetto Corsa was okay, but it was missing detail. Automobilista 2 was kind of muted, but fantastic with Formula cars. And with ACC, it had really good front connection, but it lacked a lot of suspension movement. That was something far more clear on the CSL. My watershed moment was being on stream and saying out loud many times over, I can't feel the rear of the car and I can't wait until I get back to the DD1. This told me everything I needed to know. It's definitely not a bad wheelbase, quite the contrary, but it's missing something on ACC and AC for me, and maybe in the future it will improve like it has been improving over the last 10 or so months. With the GS wheel on iRacing, it is as good as the CSL, though I much prefer the GS wheel to anything Fanatec as at that price and below. It's such a great wheel. This is exactly where the conclusions can start to be drawn. In terms of ecosystem, Fanatec has basically everything. It's absolutely brilliant. If you need something, there is likely something for you. Though Moza's ecosystem at the moment is far more surgical, they are trying to get you the best experience at the best price point and not trying to expand too much so they don't lose focus. They're really trying their best, bringing you quality at very good price. So in the case of the Moza R9, if you pair it with the GS wheel, basically you have something really compelling, especially for iRacing, to the point that I will be saying, if you only play iRacing and you don't care about anything else, the experience in iRacing is so good and the price difference is, it's actually okay. I would just tell you, just get the Moza with the R9 wheel. You'll be very happy. The CSL DD though is far more consistent in all the sims. The experience is far more consistent. And then you have a huge selection that will basically tailor the experience to you. So in my opinion, dollar to dollar, the Fanatec CSL is just a better choice. There are other reasons to choose Moza over Fanatec. You know, the wheel system with the QR is so much better. If you really care about the sturdiness of your wheelbase, that is a choice. And also about stock. There is stock in most places in the world. And where Fanatec does have stock, the stock has been quite flaky. So that means if you really don't care that much about it, just go for the Moza and you'll have a good experience. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, no matter what you're going to choose, I think you're going to be happy. And speaking of being happy, check out this video of No Hesi servers. They're really fun and there will be a good experience even if you don't have any of these wheels.